Welcome back to our little 5-minute videos. I'm Chris. Hey, we got a great series going this week on making judgments without passing judgments. But today I want to talk about this thing, the nose knows. Say that, the nose knows. You know, some people claim to have a nose for finding customers, or I have a nose for discovering talent, or somebody says I have a nose for imposters. I can pick out a dirty rat a mile away. Well, it's one thing to have a nose, but it's quite another to be nosy, and that's what I want to talk about today. My first question, is your nose hypersensitive? You know, I had a lady one time stayed at our ministry guest house, and she said, I don't like the smell of detergents or fabric softeners or cleaning supplies. Does your house have any odd smells? Well, her nose was what? Hypersensitive. And when you're hypersensitive in the spirit, you tend to be hypercritical. Now, you know, there is a discerning of spirits, but some people misuse it for the discerning of saints. For instance, I think Joyce is too bossy. Jesse tries to be too funny. Joel is too liberal. Jakes is too loud. And you notice they run through the gamut. It's Joyce and Joel and Jakes and Jesse, and they all start with a J, just like judging others starts with a J. Second question, do you have a right to put your nose in other people's business anyway? I mean, I'm just asking. You know, there is a gift of discernment, but notice this, folks. The nose is there so that you can sniff out a bad steak, or you can tell whether something passes the smell test. Let me tell you something else. The armpit is also a part of the body, or of the body of Christ. It can perspire and regulate temperature and cool down the body temperature. But here's the problem. When the nose gets in the armpit and you start putting your nose in other people's business, then's when you've got a clash and a church split's about to happen, and I'll leave it at that. Number 3, why is it that people with sensitive noses also have talkative tongues? I'm just asking. They have a sensitive nose, but also a talkative tongue. Just because you can discern something doesn't mean that you have the right to expose it and correct it. God gives you a spatial instinct, but your instinct is not there to raise a stink. Do you like my criticisms and my criticisms today? Your instinct is not to raise a stink. Just because you have the discerning of spirits does not automatically require the divulging of spirits. You know, one time in Acts chapter 16 and verse 18, Paul was preaching in Philippi, and there's a young lady with a spirit of divination that was raising a stir. Well, it says this she did many days. Notice, Paul didn't address the issue immediately. He waited many days. In other words, he didn't want to hurt the girl. Eventually, he'd have to deal with it, but the discerning of spirits did not require the divulging of spirits. And then number 4, our sense of smell was given from God as a divine protection. You know, I've smelled rotten meat. Preachers are to preach good meat, but I've also smelled rotten meat. What do you do with it? Well, I don't eat it. I might bury it. I might even go to the chef and talk to him about it. Amen. But what I don't do is take the rotten steak on the plate and stand on the street corner, ring a bell, and tell everybody that the chef deliberately served me meat that was past its prime. Why don't I do that? Because it's not my business. He doesn't work for me. He works for the restaurateur, and so I leave it with him. And that's exactly what Paul was talking about in Romans 14 and 4. Who are you to judge another man's servant? To his own master he stands or falls. In other words, we're to leave preachers with the Lord, okay? And then number 5, people with good noses ought also to have good hands. Listen, if you have a good nose and you have discernment, you ought to also have good hands. Because the reason God allows you to sniff something out is not to destroy a person. It's so that you can rescue them and redeem them. Galatians 6 and verse 1, if any man be overtaken in a fault, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness. He didn't say to repeat the matter. He didn't say to reject the person. He said to restore them. So it's all about a gift that enables you to be a blessing and help people and not hurt people. Chris, I hope you're enjoying this series. I don't know if you're enjoying it all, but here's the question. We need, is it any of our business? We need to keep our nose out of people's business, because the nose knows, but you have to use it for the right purpose. Tune in tomorrow. We've got more on Through the Prism of Chrism. Have a great day in Jesus.